friends, it's Megan, and in today's video I made a croquembouche tower. So for anyone who doesn't know, a croquembouche tower is essentially constructed of a bunch of these mini cream puffs, and they're each dipped into a hot caramel sauce that kind of sets the ring together, and it forms this Christmas tree cone situation. This recipe comes from Claire's cookbook Dessert Person, which I actually got for Christmas, which I'm very excited about. And there's a lot of delicious looking recipes that I can't wait to share with you guys. In terms of difficulty, the book provides a scale of 1 to 5, and the croquembouche was, you guessed it, a 5. And I really thought I could do this. I really had so much self-confidence. I was like, look at that picture, that's exactly what mine is going to look like. It didn't. But this process was definitely one to remember, and I think it has taught me a lot about patience. Because, you know, when I was making that caramel, I was really contemplating my life choices. I was really like, should I just give up at this point? Like, should I just dump it all down the drain? Because honestly, that was, I was thinking about that. It was like, I was gonna do it. I hope you enjoy this video. I hope you don't lose your minds along with me, and I hope you stay mentally stable. So yeah.
So first off, we're going to make the crackling. For this, you'll need some unsalted butter, all-purpose flour, brown sugar, and salt. First, we're going to pour the butter into a bowl and cream it together with the brown sugar. Mixing that until it's well combined, and then we're going to dump in the flour and mix that all together. I actually added more flour than I needed to, so I went back and added some butter after this. Then we're going to dump out this mixture on a piece of parchment paper, and then using the parchment paper, we're going to fold it into a rectangle shape. Then we're going to split that in half and reserve the other half. Putting another piece of parchment on top and then rolling that out with a rolling pin until it is about 1/8 of an inch of thickness. Then we're going to dump that onto a baking sheet and let that chill for about 10 minutes or until hardened. Taking that out, and now I'm going to use a 1-inch cutter to make little circles. My cutter was actually 1.5 inches, so that was my first mistake, but I later just used a teaspoon to make the crackling pieces a little smaller. Then we're going to place those onto a baking sheet and let those chill until we're ready to use them. Next up, we're going to be making the pot au choux. First, we're going to need some all-purpose flour, some granulated sugar, whole milk, unsalted butter, and 5 eggs. So first, we're going to add the milk into a small saucepan over medium heat, as well as the sugar and the butter pieces. Also adding in some salt and a little bit of water. Mixing that over medium heat until the butter pieces are melted. Then we're going to add in the flour all at once, and then mix until the flour is cooked. The end result should look something like this. Then we're going to take the dough off the heat and add it to a stand mixer fitted with the paddle attachment. We're beating in 1 egg at a time until the mixture is smooth and homogeneous. Then I'm going to transfer that into a pastry bag, and I didn't show in the video, but then I cut a little tip at the bottom. And then I let the bag chill out in the fridge, which was actually a really bad idea because it ended up being really hard to pipe, so I would probably recommend leaving it out at room temperature. Next up, we're going to be making the chocolate pastry cream. This was my favorite part of the whole dessert. It was so good. So first, we're going to need some granulated sugar, milk, cornstarch, unsalted butter, half a vanilla bean, egg yolks, salt, and chocolate. So first, adding the milk into a heavy bottom pot, as well as the seeds of a vanilla bean and the vanilla pod, also some salt. Then we're just going to whisk that all together until the milk is just below simmering. In a separate bowl, mixing together the egg yolks, some granulated sugar, and the cornstarch, whisking that all together until it's smooth and combined. Then we're going to stream in about half of the hot milk mixture. This will temper the eggs, making sure that they don't curdle. Once that's all combined, we're going to transfer that back into the pot and stir vigorously with a whisk until the mixture starts to thicken up. This will happen relatively quickly, so make sure that your eggs don't curdle. After the mixture is thickened up, we're going to pour it into a sieve. And using a spatula, we're going to move this mixture through the sieve just to make sure that there are no lumps in the pastry cream. Straining it will also remove the vanilla bean pod. Once that's all strained, we're going to add in the cubed butter and mix that all together until the butter is melted and incorporated into the pastry cream. Then we're going to add the chopped chocolate. I also added in some dark chocolate chips. And again, folding that all together until the chocolate is melted. Oh, and I forgot to mention this earlier, but you also want to add in some creme fraiche just to lighten up the pastry cream. This pastry cream is so good, I could probably eat it right off my fingers. And there's also going to be a little left over from piping the cream puffs, so I would recommend making a tart or something else just to use it up. Then on a parchment lined baking sheet, we're just going to trace out some 1-inch circles. This will ensure that the cream puffs are about the same size, which also is supposedly going to make them easier to stack. It would definitely make everything easier if I did this ahead of time, but it's okay. So then we're going to pipe the cream puffs, and then giving them each a little tiny crackling hat. After that's done, we're going to bake them at 425 for about 35 minutes. My choux actually ended up browning a little bit quicker, so just adjust that time as needed. We're also going to switch out the racks at about 20 minutes, and then let that continue to bake until they're nice and golden brown. After the puffs have cooled, we're going to pipe them with the chocolate filling that we made earlier. Oh, and also don't mind me on the first puff because I had no idea what I was doing. And also repeating this process on the other tray. Next up, we're going to make the caramel. So we're going to add 2 cups of sugar and a little bit of water and mix that just until combined, but not further because it encourages crystallization. So instead, just like the last video that I made, we're going to swirl it and using a wet pastry brush to just wipe down the sides of the pot. Then we're going to transfer that into a heat-proof bowl, and then the caramel is ready for dipping. I should have browned mine a little bit more, but that's okay. Then I put on some gloves and we got ready to dip the cream puffs. So I'm just going to dip the top of the cream puff into the caramel and letting the excess drip off, and then placing it back onto the baking sheet. I repeated this process with all 70 cream puffs. And yes, I got burns. And as you can tell, the caramel started to set up really quickly, so some of the cream puffs ended up with this nasty looking crystallization on top, but we're just not going to talk about that. Next up, I assembled the cream puff tower, and this was a struggle. Yeah, I muted the audio for a reason, but you guys can probably tell by the video that I was not having it, so And here's the finished product. She's not very remarkable, but it's okay.
I feel like that kid from Finding Nemo. Here are my cream puffs. They're in this nice little Costco Ziploc bag because I assembled a croquembouche at my grandma's house, and the ones that I took, of course, did not look great at all. They have this like crystallized sugar situation going on. But you know what? This is only for taste test purposes, so let's do this. I'm not gonna lie. That's really freaking good. As horrendous as my tower ended up looking, the cream puffs themselves are actually really delicious. I think if I actually had somehow made the caramel better, it would have been nicer, but in terms of texture and flavor, it's top notch. Oh, and also if you make this, I totally recommend you add chocolate into the pastry cream. It tastes amazing. It tastes like... So overall, I would probably rate this recipe an 8 out of 10. I guess I honestly shouldn't take any points off because I got what I signed up for, but it was really hard. Like really hard. I made 5 batches of caramel and had multiple mental breakdowns. I think it would be a lot more helpful if there was actually a temperature assigned to the caramel. Some of them turned out more crystallized than others, and then some of them set up faster, some of them set up slower. So I just really wish that there was a temperature, so at least you could classify it as hardball, softball, or something like that. But of course, I also understand that they wanted the cookbook to be relatively simple and not require a lot of special equipment. But I just really wish that they did give that little detail. But overall, the cream puffs themselves are super delicious, and I can definitely see myself remaking this again. And I really hope you enjoy this video. Happy 2020. Happy 2021. We're not redoing this year again. Happy 2021. Here's to new beginnings. And here's to a fresh start. I'll see you next week. Bye.
I see